It looks like it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. There will be a recording made available to you within a day or two of this presentation. We will post it on the NFHS YouTube channel so that all of you can have access to it. Angela, myself, and Christine will introduce everybody in a second. We'll be working behind the scenes to make sure that the question and answers are captured, as well as the chats and the answers to your questions through chat. We will also provide that to you following this recording. So you'll have access to all of that, and hopefully you'll be able to use that during the course of this season. So with that being said, welcome everybody. My name is Sandy Searcy. I am a National Federation of State High School Associations Director of Sports, and I'd like to welcome you to the second iteration of the Water Polo Discussion Forum. We say discussion forum, but the discussion back and forth is mainly through the chat and question and answer. And we had to use the webinar feature because there are so many on this call. On this particular call, we have over 125. Our first round of this, I think we had around 200 folks. So it just was not possible to give everybody the opportunity to talk and unmute themselves. So just wanted to let you know why we're choosing this option. But hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions and provide you the appropriate information. Go ahead and move forward, Levon. Great. As I said before, how to ask a question. You'll all be muted during the rule interpretation portion. We have for you today some video for you to watch and some ancillary video. And with us is one of the committee members for the NFHS Water Polo Rules Committee, as well as the chair is available and going to help with chat today. So we're in for a real treat. So to ask any questions, click on the Q&A tab, upper left-hand corner of some of your screens. If you have a different version, it may be somewhere else on your screen, but find that Q&A and type your question. Then click chat or send. You can always use the chat feature as well. We will be, sorry, that's my dog in the background, squeaking a toy, of course. But we'll be monitoring that throughout the presentation. So next slide, please. Again, my name's Sandy Searcy. Angela Williams is a coordinator of sports in our office, and she does most of the legwork as far as making sure that you have the available resources. She takes care of our rules committee in preparation for their meetings. And she's just been a wealth of information and a huge asset to this office. She's starting her second year with us, so we're really pleased to have her. Okay, next slide, please. Just a little background information. As you can see, the country is divided into 8 sections with states assigned to each section. The number of states varies depending on the geography, but I'm sure most of you in Illinois have already heard this information from Beth Sauser in your rule interpretation meeting, but I know there are individuals from Missouri and Michigan and Ohio on this meeting as well. So we just wanted to tell you a little bit about how we consider rule proposals and how the Rules Committee makes its rules. Each year, the Water Polo Rules Committee meets, and we have representatives from each one of those 8 sections on the committee, as well as the chair. In some instances, we have multiple individuals from the same section, because right now we don't have water polo being played in all 51 state associations, and the 51st state association being DC. And so to complement and have those 11 committee members, we do have multiple representatives in several sections. So we meet usually at the end of March, early April, and every other year we consider rule proposals. This being a year that we will not consider rule proposals, but we use this time together to discuss how the rules are being interpreted, if there are any problem areas, if we need to address something the following year relative to rule changes. So we utilize our time. The time is well spent, and we talk about national trends and what's happening, and as far as the state of the state in water polo, both nationally and internationally. So it's a good time for us to kind of reconvene and talk about issues associated with high school water polo. Next slide, please, Levon. This is just a slide of the individuals like myself, the directors of sport, that we each have a variety of sports that is under our purview. I've got softball and swimming as well as water polo, but you can just see those are the folks, the administrators in our office. Next slide, please. This slide shows you the individuals that are currently on the rules committee. And as you can see, there are 3 representatives from Illinois, and they work very hard to make certain that our rules are appropriate for the high school level. I can tell you that, that we've had some marathon sessions, and you will notice, and the reason we are conducting this clinic is because there were a tremendous number of rule changes this year. And so we've all kind of worked together and helped to provide this clinic for you. Next slide, please, Levon. Those of you out there who are either officiating or coaching water polo realize that we do have a 2-year water polo rule book. That's just an indication of some of the other publications that we provide. You can see up in the right-hand corner, High School Today. That's a monthly publication, and it's, as you can see, we publish over 4 million pieces annually. So it's a tremendous undertaking as far as the NFHS staff. Next slide, please. This is just a slide talking about our rulebook app that we went to a couple of years ago. I think administrators, coaches, and officials have found it quite helpful as far as having access to the rulebook on deck or during a timeout. It's searchable, which is a nice feature. It has quiz questions embedded into the rulebook. Now, I will tell you that water polo does not have quiz questions yet, but that is the next undertaking for the Water Polo Rules Committee. This year we did provide a number of new resources, this PowerPoint being one of them, but we were able to pull together a national exam. And so we'll be working on additional resources for high school water polo in the near future. Next slide, please. Now, this slide talks about where we are with high school sports, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce my partner in crime, my other partner in crime besides Angela, and that's Christine Pally, who is the chair of the Water Polo Rules Committee. Christine is a wealth of knowledge. She's played it, she's adjudicated it, she's administered it, she wears a lot of different hats, and she's been a huge resource and a leader amongst high school water polo from the state of California. And she will talk a little bit about why we're doing this and who we are, and then introduce our clinician today.
Yeah, hi everyone. Christine Pally. Thank you, Sandy. I'm from California, from the southern section. We have about 580-ish high schools that are part of our federation. So I think a lot of you guys are part of state associations, but we're very large, so we kind of have to break the state up a little bit. But I am in the administrative office, so I am part of the dark side. But I did come from a teaching background. I was a teacher and coach and athletic director prior to moving into administration and onto the CIF Southern Section office. So I've been there where you guys are in this tough year. Never experienced what you're experiencing now in terms of you know, trying to keep your kids connected and interested and learning. So thank you so much for all that you are doing right now. I really want to talk about where we are with high school sports, because I think there's so much confusion out there across the nation of, there's some states that are playing and there's some states that aren't, and why is that, and who decides? So in our state, I think our state association has gotten a lot of criticism, because in the state of California, we just started cross country, the first and only sport that has had any competitions, and that started here recently. So I know there's a lot of schools across the country and a lot of areas that have, completed fall seasons and potentially winter seasons here coming to an end pretty soon. We have not been that fortunate in California, but things are looking up. We got some good information from our governor today. So, it's not necessarily your state association that's able to make these decisions. Your state association is at the mercy of the governor, the government within your state, mainly the public health departments that kind of let everybody know what's the state of the union in terms of the pandemic. So, and then even smaller than that, you have to look to your local county that may also have different regulations, just depending on, how densely populated an area is, or how widespread things are. So, even if the state says that you can play and your association says that you can play, there could still be the county that says, hey, we're not in the best position right now to do this safely, so we're going to have to hold off a little more. And then the next layer, your school districts, they can have even more stringent policies, as can your school. So it's interesting. It's been a difficult year, and I think the biggest concern of educators, and especially of principals and school leadership, is trying to effectively deliver education, right? So this being education-based athletics, I'm hopeful that just kind of having that understanding and putting yourself in an administrator's shoes, where you just lost maybe your lifeline to kids in terms of that in-person interaction, and now you have to figure out how to deliver meaningful education. Sometimes sports and extracurricular activities, as important as they are, they may not be at the forefront or the priority, right? So I think for educators, it's kind of been triage, where we're just trying to figure out what is the thing that needs the most attention. Obviously, education was that first piece, and now maybe they're getting to the point where they can start incorporating some of those extracurriculars back in. So like I said, in California, it's been tough, and I think we're the only state to have not started a football season here. So the governor and the state has been under some scrutiny, but we're all just trying to keep everybody safe and do what's best for kids. So hopefully be patient with your principals and with your school leadership. As much as I'd like to think I'm the right hand of Sandy, I would have to say Lavon then is the left, and probably four fingers of the right, because without Lavon Dermangian, who is not only our state rules interpreter, but the referee relations person for USA Water Polo, we would be lost. And while I do have some experience in the water polo realm, I have never been a referee. So thank you to those who officiate, and I'm sorry for anyone who's ever yelled at you or given you a hard time on a pool deck. I have never been a referee. I don't know that I'm brave enough to do that, but thankful for Lavon and his involvement, getting some of these rules put into high school and accepted into high school was some were better received than others. I think the closer that we can get to a game that is standardized across the board, FINA and at the collegiate level and at the high school level, the better it will be for players, for referees, for coaches. But as an educational athletic based entity, we don't want to adopt rules that were made for the top, let's just say 300 players in the world, right? So FINA sometimes will come up with some rules and some things that are designed for the best athletes that have the best facilities, the most resources, 7 referees at a table, one having, each responsibility, and not your frosh soft group that's learning to run the shot clock and the game clock and trying to take a book all at the same time. So, we try to keep that in mind, and also just the health and safety of water polo at the high school level, and the players that are playing for the first time. So not all rules that are accepted into FINA get implemented into high school and collegiate, and there's a reason for that. So, but I do think that the ones we adopted this year are really going to help with the kids that are playing in the off season, and kind of standardize the game at a level that it hasn't been in the past between club and high school. So we're getting closer, which is great. And we look forward to sharing some of those changes with you today. So again, thankful for Levon. I'm going to answer as many questions as they come up in the chat and the messages as possible. And Levon, forgive me if I butt in and ask something that I need a more technical answer, or a better answer, or just an answer altogether. If it's something that I don't know, I'll apologize in advance for that. So thank you guys for being here today. Appreciate your time, and we will try to make this painless and informative.
One thing we noticed from the first round of this is sometimes the question is asked and it's not clear what is truly being asked. So there's a little bit of back and forth that Christine will need to do. And if it's a question that is clearly asked and she does not have the answer, she's going to reach out to Levon and he'll provide the answer. So it will be in the recording, it will be in the chat. We just want to make sure to capture all of your questions. So think about it before you type it, and send it in to Christine. And again, she'll answer them if she has the answer at the tip of her tongue, or she'll present it to the group so that Levon can answer it so that everybody hears the same answer. And again, all of this will be available for your review following the presentation within the next 48 hours or so.
All right. Well, thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Christine. Thank you for the kind words. We couldn't do this without the hard work that you guys put in as well. So thank you, everybody, for the effort to get these new rules changes and get everybody on the same page, like you said, which is just vitally important to us and what we're trying to do. So good evening, everybody. It's great to be with you. I always like to chat about water polo and rules with different audiences, coaches, players, referees. So I'm thankful to be here with you guys today. We're going to discuss these new rules. We are going to go through the new rules as they appear in the rule book. So you'll notice it'll say the first slide we're going to come here. The first slide we're going to come up on is Rule 1, and then we're going to go through in order. We do have some videos. I am going to share some videos with the new rule about putting the ball in play, and also the foul from behind within 6 meters. We have a set of videos for both of them. I'm going to play them on the screen, but sometimes with Zoom, what we get is a very laggy, on your end, it'll be very laggy and choppy. So what I'll do is I'll share the link, the YouTube link, so you can follow along as well on your end. So once we get to those slides. So without further ado, let's start the slideshow. So first things first, let me adjust here so I have the best view on my end for the screen. The markers, the things that have changed. So new this year is we introduced a 6 meter line. So this is an additional line. The 5 meter has moved to the 6 meter line. So everything that all the references to 5 meter line in the rule book are now 6 meter line. The 5 meter line is still there. The only purpose for a 5 meter line is to take a penalty shot from the 5 meter line, or if your state association has a shootout procedure, shootouts would be on the 5 meter line. So the new markings would be red from the goal line to the 2 meter line, yellow from the 2 meter line to the 6 meter line, and then some kind of marker that is red for the 5-meter line. So that could be a red buoy, it could be a red deck marker, it could be a red cone. So if you were going to do cones, it would be red, red, yellow. For lane lines, so it'd be red from the goal line to the 2-meter line, and then yellow all the way to the 6. And then again, some kind of marker, maybe a red buoy for the 5-meter line to indicate the 5-meter line. So let me go to the next slide, which we elaborate a little bit more on the change. So again, everything that had to do with the 5-meter line is now the 6-meter line. So the new penalty area is the 6-meter area. So a player who's in the 6-meter area and is facing the cage or going to the cage and is fouled, that prevents a probable goal, it would be a penalty foul now within the 6-meter area. Coaches on offense may advance to the 6-meter line when coaching on offense. Of course, on defense, you still must remain behind the goal line on defense. Goalkeepers lose their goalkeeper privileges outside a 6-meter area, so they can only use one hand outside of 6 meters, and they cannot use the bottom of the pool. If there are questions, I'll stop every couple of slides or so to taking questions, or if clarification is needed, Christine will let me know immediately. So feel free to ask away if you need to. Here's a little diagram of a full course, and we tend to not have a center ball release, right? So a couple of things a little bit different. Like Christine mentioned, we don't have the luxury of having, I don't know, 20 members of the table here, but so you'll notice the new markings here on all sides. Benches should be across the pool from the official table. Your reentry areas are 2 meters from the side of the pool. Those all haven't changed, but this is what they would look like. Green buoys or green, it would be green all the way to the half, which in half would be a white marker still. Moving on. So other equipment. This has to do with padded caps, soft padded caps, or what a player can wear underneath a water polo cap. So a player is now permitted to wear a soft padded cap as a water polo cap, but the only thing is here is that it must meet the requirements of the cap. So you have things like the numbers, you have to have 3 numbers, the piping, the requirements, the quarter, splitting the caps into quarters or thirds, all the same rules that apply for the water polo caps rule, they must be on that soft padded cap, or else it would be illegal. So if all that exists in a soft padded cap, yes, you can wear that cap. Also, we got rid of a player may only wear a swim cap underneath the water polo cap, even though I believe they're still considered a swim cap, but just a little different from a traditional swim cap. Some companies sell this. It looks like a skin type. Again, it looks like a swim cap, but there are these little bubbles all over around it that apparently they help absorb some of the shock of getting hit with a ball. That would be allowed as long as you could fit it under a water polo cap, and that swim cap closely matches the color of the water polo cap. So if you're a dark team, it has to match as closely as possible to your dark cap, and if you're the goalkeeper, it should be red. Yes.
If I could interject, you're absolutely correct. As far as the claim that those types of caps prevent injury.
Right.
I said claim. So right. Just be prudent. Just be a good student of reading what the kids are wearing. Do your research.
Yep. Thank you for that, Sandy. So moving on to the next slide. So new this year, a new rule change is that the scorekeeper of the home team shall be given a roster with full names of the players at least 15 minutes prior to the start of the game. Also, the name of the officials should be on there as well. The rationale behind this is so often we'll have incidents occur in a game, and then the referee goes to the score sheet to sign and also uh, get the information of the player, the coach, what have you, and then there is no names whatsoever on the score sheet. So this way, everybody is fully on a score sheet rostered, and we can see who is participating. Um, we were given a good tidbit last time, just to ensure to make this very easy for you as possible as coaches. It would be wise to have a lot of printed copies of not only your varsity, all teams, right? If you have even 3 levels, your frost off, all of them on 1 page or 2 pages, and that way you can just easily give it to the home team when you're traveling to away games. That would be the easiest way to go about it, instead of having someone manually going, because I can't tell you how many times we've had wet players coming out of the pool trying to give information and spelling to a scorekeeper, which is not the best way to do it. So 15 minutes prior to the game in the secretary's hands. Interval time. New this year, we expanded interval time to 5 cases. So previously, the 4 were between the time between periods, during a timeout, before the restart after a goal, and before the taking of a penalty throw was considered interval time. Now, any time that the referee removes the ball out of the water, this is considered interval time. So things like issuing yellow and red cards, clock errors, any reason that the referee has the ball in their hands, this is considered now interval time. Now, interval time it has an effect on a couple of rules, right? So, for example, misconduct. There are different penalties when it comes to misconduct of a player, when it happens during the game or during interval time. So, these 5 now instances are the interval time. Christine, if you would let me know if there's a good time to stop and take some questions, we can go ahead and do that. But let me go through maybe 1 or 2 more, and then if it's not pressing, we can maybe get to them then. Goalkeeper privileges. Goalkeepers are now able to move beyond half and join the offense, and they're able to take a penalty shot, and they're also able to be a shooter in a shootout if the state association permits a shootout procedure. One thing about this rule, even though the goalkeeper can join the offense, you cannot remove the goalkeeper and bring in a 7th field player. So this would not be the same case as hockey, where you pull out the goalie in the last minute or so and then bring on another 7th field player. You cannot do that. But the goalkeeper wearing the goalkeeper cap can cross half and be like any other player. Previously, they were only limited to on their own defensive half. One thing we would like to stress with this new rule as well is that because the goalkeeper joins the attack and now the cage is open, does not mean that every foul that they commit is magically now an exclusion or a penalty foul because there's an open cage. A goalkeeper is able to commit an ordinary foul just like everyone else if it is an ordinary foul. So we just wanted to make sure that we don't confuse that it's an automatic any type of major foul because they're now in the attacking half of the pool. Let me go and let's stop here. I saw a couple of questions come in, or Christina, were those questions maybe some remarks, or is that? Oh, I'm sorry, they were chat. So I'm seeing the little numbers clicking, and they were chat, not questions. I'm sorry.
No, there were a few questions, but I think we got them answered. It was just regarding whether or not the caps are required or if they're optional. And I just mentioned they were an optional item, provided they can, be worn under the game caps. And then just regarding officials and how to get the officials' names. So either the officials would provide them or the table workers can request the names of the officials. They have to sign the official scorebook, so that might be a good time at the end. I always prefer to get them at the beginning just so that you have them in case the officials are trying to quick initial and run out the door. Seen that a couple times, but yeah.
There's one that just came in. When the goalie is out of the cage, I would assume we treat them as a field player, correct?
I'm so sorry, Sandy. Said if they're out of the cage.
when the goalie is out of the cage, I would assume we treat them as a field player, correct?
Past
No,
6 minutes.
not automatically. No, they still have goalkeeper privileges within the 6 meter area. It's after the 6 meter area where they become like everyone else, because they can only use one hand and they cannot use the bottom of the pool.
Excellent.
Okay, so I will just wait till there's questions pop up, and Christina, I'll wait till you tell me otherwise, or else I'm gonna.
There's one more, Levon.
Sure, please.
Christine's typing, so I'll just go ahead and
Oh.
verbalize. If goalkeeper is excluded as a field player, they may be substituted with another goalkeeper, correct?
Yes, and that's one of the slides that we're going to get to here shortly, and we're going to go through all that. Yep. Awesome. Let me go back and share my screen. Oh, no, did that too quickly. Gotta go here. Okay, clarification here for goals, how they're scored. One thing that there's a lot of changes when it comes to how a goal can be scored. So one thing that is clear is that anytime a foul occurs inside of 6 meters, or for that matter, the ball floats inside of 6 meters. So anytime the play restarts within the 6 meter area, 2 players must intentionally play the ball before a goal can be scored. So that has not changed. There's a couple of differences that we're going to get to where, you know, now you can put the ball in play and shoot and score and a couple of things like that. But one thing that has not changed is anytime it's an inside of 6 meter area, the ball or the foul, 2 players must intentionally play the ball before a goal is scored. So now for fouls occurring outside of 6 meters and other little cases here, which we're going to talk about, is there's a new form of scoring a goal, which is you are now able to essentially make yourself live and then shoot and score. This would be essentially the equivalent of you passing the ball and getting the ball back. But for you to be able to do that, you must first visibly put the ball in play, visibly and clearly put the ball in play. And we're going to talk about it in a slide coming up here where the examples of how to clearly do that. But after you clearly and visibly put the ball in play, you can score a goal in the following ways here. So for a foul that occurs outside of 6 meters and the ball located outside of 6 meters, you have to have both. Or you cannot shoot and score until you have both the foul and the ball outside of 6 meters. A corner throw is a new method of that. You can put yourself live from a corner throw and then shoot and score a goal. A goal throw, same situation. Any start or restart after of play outside of 6 meters, you are able to do that. So for example, referee is going to replace a cap. The ball is outside of 6 meters. So they blow the whistle, they remove the ball out from the field of play. The player retrieves their cap. When the referee returns the ball to that player outside of 6 meters, that player, after they put the ball in play visibly, in one of the ways we'll talk about, they are able to then shoot and score. They can swim anywhere in the field of play and shoot and score. They become a live player. For a ball leaving outside of the pool, outside of the 6 meter area, so let's say ball goes out of bounds over the sideline outside of 6 meters, the ball comes in from the bench outside of the 6 meter area, that player again could make themselves live and then they are eligible to shoot and score. After a goal, after a timeout, and I got ahead of myself there a little bit, but H is when the referee returns the ball to the pool. If the ball was removed from inside of 6 meters, remember, anytime we restart inside of 6 meters, you cannot shoot and score a goal. The only exception to that is a corner throw. Corner throw is the only one where you can now put the ball live and then shoot and score. One other one that I want to mention here is neutral throws. So anytime a neutral throw is conducted outside of 6 meters, even though we don't see this very often, because usually a player, the player taking the neutral throw usually tips it to one of their teammates, but technically a player could tip the ball to themselves, put the ball in play visibly, and then swim all the way down and shoot and score a goal. But the key is, again, that the restart must be outside of 6 meters. If you had a neutral throw inside of 6 meters, you would not be able to do that. 2 players must intentionally play the ball before it can be shot and scored.
Questions?
Yep.
Christine, do you want to go first or you want me to?
No, I'm just answering in the chat questions. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm doing the Q&A first. If a foul
Okay.
happens outside of 6 meters, ball floats inside 6 meter, can a player move the ball outside the 6 meter marker, put into play, and then shoot?
No, and we're gonna get to one of the new rules. I think maybe it's coming up on the next slide. Is the new rule this year is that the ball must be played where it lies. So we don't have the luxury anymore of dictating, oh, you need to go back to this area. The only way we would able to move the ball from the area is if it was inside the 2 meter area, then you must take a free throw outside of 2, or a goal throw, right? A goal throw must be taken within the 2 meter area of the goalie's defensive half. But other than that, we don't have the luxury to do that. So because that ball is now inside of 6 meters, the player would not be able to shoot and score, whether it's a direct shot or putting the ball in play and then shooting and scoring. So
These may
oh,
be relatively the same, but I will ask it anyway. If the ball is removed from outside 6 meter to return a cap of a player who is inside 6 meter, would the ball be returned outside of 6 meter and allow a shot?
the ball would be returned back to the pool where it was taken out of. So it wouldn't matter which players were placing a cap, wherever we remove the ball, that's where the ball would come back into.
Gotcha. Another one, John asks, outside of 6 meter, they must put it in play first before a shot attempt. In Levon's example of putting the cap on return ball, no shot, it must be put in play.
Right. So anytime that a ball comes from out of the pool, you are not able to shoot directly. So the only time that a player can shoot directly from a ball coming outside of the pool would be a corner throw or a goal throw. That one you can pick up the ball, shoot immediately like you would outside of 6 meters. But any other time, you would have to put the ball in play and then shoot and score.
And then finally on Q&A, do the players need to shoot immediately after putting the ball in play, or can they shoot after a delay?
Yeah, so this would not be like a direct shot. Direct shot has to be immediate. So once you put the ball in play, which has to be done in a reasonable amount of time at the discretion of the referees, once you do that, you are now free to hold on to the ball for 10 seconds and then shoot. You can swim all the way down to the cage and then shoot and score. You are essentially a live player, as if you just passed it and got it back. So there is no time limit except for the shot clock.
And I'm looking at the chat. I think Christine got all the chat questions. Is that correct, Christine?
I'm going back and forth. I'm so sorry.
No, I am too. Okay, I think we've got it all.
Okay, and if there's more to come in, no problem. We can backtrack a little bit and talk about. So there's
Okay.
no problem.
Okay.
Again, talking about how scored, the signal for awarding a foul that is within 1 meter of the 6 meter line has changed. So the referee is no longer pointing down to the 5 meter line to indicate that the player is able to shoot and score. Now it's the 6 meter line, and the signal is raising an arm up, straight up, to indicate that the player is able to shoot. Again, the referee does not need to do this unless it is within 1 meter of the 6 meter. So if you're at 8 meters and you get a foul, the referee, there's no mandate for the referee to show that signal. So one other thing about the signal that I wanted to mention is that it is not a protestable event. So poor referee mechanics are not protestable. So you think that, oh, the referee should have raised their hand and they didn't. Now the shooter doesn't know and they chose not to shoot because they looked at the referee and there was no signal. Those are not protestable. So the rationale behind this rule change is because it was more clear to everyone on the pool deck if that player was eligible, right? So if you a hand up, no matter where you're located on the pool deck, you can see that that player is eligible to shoot and score. With pointing down to the marker, it's a little bit more difficult to see everyone on the pool deck. So that was the rationale for that. Here's the little graphic that we have to show. Okay. We're still on how scored. So as mentioned before, both the foul and the ball must be outside of 6 meters for a player to shoot and score, whether it's a direct shot on goal or a putting the ball in play and then shooting. So I just had a play recently where a center defender was excluded at 2 meters when the ball was outside of 6. The player was excluded, and then the player immediately picks up the ball and shoots and scores. We turned the ball over as referees, and the coach asked why that was the case, was confused why that wasn't a goal. Again, we had to remind, because both the foul and the ball must be outside of 6 meters. So, and we already talked about 2 players of either team having to intentionally touch or play the ball for a goal to be scored within the 6 meter area.
Levon,
Yes.
can I ask just a quick question? And this is one from the Q&A, and I apologize, you may have already answered it, but it says, so bringing the ball back outside of 6 meters after an ordinary foul, no direct shot, but you can put it into play and shoot. So my understanding is the only time a ball is moved is when it's inside the 2.
Correct. So you, as referees, as players, you cannot move the ball outside of the 6 meter area to either take a direct shot or put the ball in play. It must be taken where the ball lies. Okay. So again, yes, the only time we must move the ball is if the foul or the ball is inside of 2 meters at the time the foul is awarded. The free throw must be taken on or outside of the 2 meter line. And also with the goal throw. So let's say the bench throws in the ball, they throw it into the 5 meter line as opposed to the 2 meter area. We have to tell that player who's taking that goal throw to move back into the 2 meter area.
Okay.
Corner throws, like we mentioned, there's a new, there's several things you can do now with a corner throw. So corner throw shall be taken to by a player of the attacking team from the 2 meter mark on the side nearest to which the ball crossed the goal line. And this is so important, and I can't stress this enough, that the referees have to do this, because depending on where those players are in the pool, it could have a huge effect on advantage, right? So if the ball is shot and it goes outside to the left of the cage, it must be taken to the left of the cage. If it's to the right, it must be the bench. Let's say if it's on the left of the cage, they must throw the ball across the pool to the right side of the cage. So what I would say is that for coaches to direct their players or assistant coaches, whoever is going to be throwing that ball in, to first look to the referee to see where they would like the ball to be thrown to. Because if the coach decides to throw the ball in the wrong area, on the wrong side, it could be seen as a tactical move, right? So let's say you have a player, there's some kind of numerical advantage in the front court, and a player who's in the correct position to take the corner throw is right there. The coach then decides to throw it across the pool where there's not a player within 10 meters of another player. That you can see how that would give ample time to that defending team to get all their players down, and now that advantage situation is gone. So this is why it's so important that the ball is placed on the correct side as it's written in the rule. So just know that a referee might give you a warning the first time, but you could be subject to cards if it is repeated. So just be aware of that. The player taking the corner throw has a couple options. Number one is they can shoot immediately like they would for a foul outside of 6 meters. So no faking, no delaying, no hesitation, what have you. You just pick up the ball and you shoot right away. Or if you don't shoot right away, if you're not going to shoot directly, and if you put the ball in play within a reasonable amount of time, you can fake and then shoot. You can swim without passing and shoot. So you essentially, again, become a live player to go anywhere and shoot and score. Another thing I wanted to mention about the corner throw is just be prepared for the referees to make you swim all the way to the side of the pool. The days of taking a corner throw 2, 3, 4 meters from the side of the pool are over, because again, this is such a critical part of the rule, right? You can see how this could be a huge advantage. So the referees are going to make you go all the way back to the side of the pool to take that corner throw. Free throws, we kind of talked about this already, but free throws now, or regardless if you're on offense or on defense, it does not matter. It is played exactly where it lies. So that is where a free throw must be taken. Again, the only time that it would be moved out of an area is if it's inside of the 2-meter area, or if the referee has to tell the player taking the goal throw to go back into the 2-meter area. Other than that, there is no other time that the ball can be moved from its location to another location without it first being put in play. If you do that without putting the ball in play, that is a delay of game, and not putting the ball in play correctly, and it would be a turnover. So it must be taken where the ball lies.
Levon, a quick question, just about clock error.
Okay.
If the ball is removed for a clock error, can you take a direct shot once it's replaced?
Yes, great question. Thank you. I forgot about that one example. So there were 3, and I'm like, there was one more, but yes, that is the only other time in high school where you are able to shoot a direct shot. So we have the corner throw, we have the goal throw, and we're talking about when the ball comes outside of the pool, right? So a corner throw, goal throw, and the third one would be if the referee removes the ball outside of 6 meters after a foul, returns it back to the water after correcting that clock error. On the whistle, the player may shoot directly and score a goal. So we kept that in the rule book for this year. So thank you for that question, and so we can clarify it. So,
okay,
thanks. Free throws and correctly putting the ball in play. So as we mentioned, it must be clearly and visibly taken. We're going to watch a couple of videos after this slide here so we can show what is correct and what is not correct, but it must be clearly and visibly taken by the player within a reasonable amount of time which is at the discretion of the referee. So what we instruct referees is that usually the player who gets the foul, gets the ball, has a brief moment to take a look, who's open, scan the pool, and then after this brief scan, they don't pass the ball, they must put the ball in play. But here are the examples: obviously passing the ball to another player, putting the ball in play, dropping it onto the water from a raised hand, throwing it up or popping it up out of the hand is another. You must also, before swimming with it, you have to either toss or place the ball in front of you, on the side of you, what have you, but there has to be some kind of separation with the ball in the hand before you start swimming with it. And then also transferring the ball from one hand to another above the surface of the water. If you transfer hands on the surface from your non-dominant to your dominant hand, that is okay. That is not considered putting the ball in play. But once it's done above water, it is considered putting in play. So going back a little bit to the tossing or placing the ball in front of you. So there's a foul called and the ball is floating. You as a player cannot swim and then continue swimming through it, dribbling with the ball here in front of you. That would be considered a turnover. That is not correctly put in ball in play. That's why we say that if you want to just toss it or just place it in front of you, people throw it in front of them, what have you, that is okay. But there has to be some kind of separation with the ball and the hand. Again, we have a signal for referees. Again, this is not protestable. Poor mechanics, unfortunately, are not protestable, but referee should go from a horizontal to vertical position. So basically drop their hand down when that ball is in play. So what I would suggest to players is not to just look at the referee to say when the hand is going to be released. It is now vital for the player to put the ball in play. So I would advise to wait till that player, there's some kind of release of the ball in the hand. And if there isn't, the referee should turn the ball over. So the only guaranteed method for a player to repress and not and not get excluded is if they clearly see the ball separated from the hand. That means it's clearly in play. So let's stop here. Let me share this link with you, and let's watch some videos.
Levon, really quick.
Good.
Corner throw, a fake on a corner throw is not considered putting the ball in play.
Yeah, so no longer is faking acceptable, putting the ball in play, and also spinning the ball in the hand. So those are the two things that we remove, because again, the ball clearly has to be separated from the ball and the hand. Yeah.
And while Christine is typing on that one, another one, weren't these the same ball and play rules like 15 years ago, i.e. throwing the ball in the air?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, it was.
Back to the basics.
Yep. I am putting the YouTube link here right now. If you would like, if it is choppy on your end, you can follow along with this YouTube video. It's going to be all in order. The playlist is in order of how we're going to discuss them. So let me go ahead and share the screen. Okay, so let's watch this first one here. So as you saw, it was clearly popped up out of the hand where it's visible to everyone, so there's no confusion. And here's one that there's a slight difference. Let's take a look. As you can tell the difference between the two, this one was not clearly visible. They did some kind of little, I don't even know if there was any separation with the ball in hand, but it looked like they tried to do it, but not clear, not visible. So this would not be considered putting the ball in play. So let's watch it again. Now, the reason why there is the stipulation of having it clearly and visibly putting it in play is because this allows the defender to play defense, right? To repress. If we allowed plays like this to occur where someone could just quickly flick it in their hand and then quickly shoot, that would sort of be the equivalent of a direct shot, all right? So by us stipulating that it has to be clearly and visibly put in play, gives ample time for that defender to repress and play defense. Watching the next one here, dropping it on the surface of the water. Again, it's very clear, very visible. There's here's one with swimming.
Yeah, yeah, surfing obviously one of her two loves, water polo and surfing, and so she had a go at it and did pretty good and decided to come back to the polo.
As you can see, she took several strokes with the ball before she ever picked it up. This would be a turnover. You cannot swim through the ball, continue dribbling it without some kind of separation with the ball in hand. And we're not saying that the player necessarily needs to stop their swimming and then go vertical and then pop the ball up. We're not saying that. They could, again, simply toss the ball or place the ball, just as long as it's clear that there was some kind of separation with the ball in the hand. And then they would be okay to continue playing. So it should have been a turnover when they started taking swim strokes, 1 or 2, whatever. It should have been whistled. So here's an example of placing the ball before swimming. So they placed the ball down in front of them, and then they picked the ball back up, and they shot it. So it was the separation with the ball in the hand. Okay, so that was it for the putting the ball in play. Let me stop here and go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, re-entry. This was a question that was asked earlier. New for this year, a backup goalkeeper can be substituted for an excluded goalkeeper. So previously it was the position that was excluded and not the player. So the goalkeeper position was removed and you couldn't bring another goalkeeper in. Now you can. So for example, and again, I probably can only imagine this happening if there was a timeout, but so let's say goalkeeper is excluded. The team on offense calls timeouts. The team on defense could do a lifetime substitution. So bring in a field player, remove a field player, and bring in a backup goalkeeper to play the goalkeeper position. So I guess you could do this during lifetime too, if there's a field player close to the reentry area and they quickly duck under and the backup goalkeeper comes in. But just know that it is allowed. You can substitute a field player for the backup goalkeeper if the starting goalkeeper is excluded. Enforcement. So this rule is we are dealing with leaving the field of play. So a player may leave. They could technically leave under the sideline and goal line and not have a penalty. So here is the thing. We in the rule book are still encouraging players to use the reentry area as a method of lifetime substitution. So if you read the rule book, it'll say a lifetime substitution must occur through the reentry area. So the wording of must might give the indication that, okay, now if it doesn't occur through here, there has to be some kind of penalty. Here's the thing, the penalty for that happening has been removed. So if it doesn't happen through the reentry area, a player leaves on the sideline and then swims all the way around to the reentry area, technically the penalty of that action has been removed. So the main point is that we're not condoning it. We still want lifetime substitutions to go in and out through the reentry area, but we put this little thing in there for player safety issues, right? So a lot of times players will, they're injured, something's happening, but they're floating, they could really use a wall to grab onto, but they're afraid of, hey, if I go underneath this sideline, I'm going to be excluded by the referee. So in the interest of player safety, the penalty was removed for you to go underneath the sideline or goal line, leaving anywhere on the field of play with the exception of your own reentry area and not having to be a penalty. So this does not change the penalty for leaving the pool, physically leaving the water, right? So if that still happens, you are still excluded for the remainder of the game for leaving the water, right? So that's still the same. If you have a pool that has no sidelines, then there's no way you can get away with that. You leave the pool, you're done. That's the game exclusion. So if a player, yes.
Sorry, just
No.
I'm so sorry. Really quickly, on the exclusion, do you have to wait for the excluded goalie to reach the re-entry area before the substitute goalie enters? So you have to wait for the field and excluded goalie before the sub enters?
You cannot have two goalkeepers in the field of play at the same time. So yes, you would have to. Yeah.
And then the other thing was attacking after an ordinary foul outside of 6 or on a corner throw. When can you attack in terms of, so we're waiting for the player to put the ball in play. Is it on the release that you can attack, or do they need to re-receive the ball and then you can attack? When can you attack the foul player?
Yeah, great question. It's right when the ball releases the hand. So once the ball is separated from the hand, that is technically considered in play. So you do not have to wait till the player catches the ball. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So if a player voluntarily leaves the field of play somewhere other than their reentry area, the penalty is on their return. So they cannot return unless they get to the reentry area. They cannot re-enter, or their substitute cannot re-enter. So if someone does, whether it's they who re-enters illegally or their substitute, depending on who has the ball, a proper penalty has to be given, right? So if they have the ball, it would just be an exclusion on that player. If they don't have the ball, if they're on defense while that happens, it's a penalty foul. So if one of the following occurs, then the player doesn't need to go to the re-entry area. So if a goal is scored, if a timeout is awarded, or at the end of the period, there's no need for the player to reach the re-entry area for them to return or for their substitute to return. So, okay, moving on to tactical foul. We added tactical foul in the rule book this year because it's, again, it's very critical to another rule that was passed this year, right? Which is putting yourself live and then shooting and scoring. So because the ball is played where it lies, I think we can all imagine how some players might want to take advantage of that, right? So if I foul a player and I tactically move the ball inside of 6 meters, aha, now this player cannot shoot. Now the player cannot shoot directly. They cannot put the ball live and shoot because now we can no longer put the ball back outside of 6 meters. So to counter that, and as well as other types of tactical fouls that we've seen, we put this in the rules. So if a player does one of the following, but not limited to, it could be other types of tactical fouls as well. If they knock the ball inside of 6 meters, if they knock it further away from the goal, if they actually physically pick up the ball and throw it to the other side of the pool, these are tactical fouls. And depending on when they occur, it could be a penalty foul. So those are exclusion fouls. If it happens within the last minute of the game, to prevent a goal, it is a penalty foul. So I'm sure many of you have seen this before, where here it is, a couple of seconds left in the game, a player fouls, then picks up the ball, throws it to the other side of the pool with 3 seconds left in the game. And this is tactical, right? Because they know that if they pick up the ball, they throw it to the other side of the pool, yes, they'll be excluded for that interference, but the ball has to be played where it lies. And by the time you pass the ball to the front court, by the time a shot is made, your 3 seconds is up, game is over. So that is part of why this tactical foul was also put into place, to combat that. That now it would become a tactical foul within the last minute of the game would become a penalty shot. So defining what the final minute of the game is, we have the last minute of the fourth quarter, the last minute of the second overtime period, or any time during the Sun victory period would be just defined as the final minute. That would be a penalty shot.
Levon, quick question. Penalty for having 2 goalkeepers in the field of play at one time. I imagine the second goalkeeper is an ineligible player. So are they done for the game and then a penalty shot awarded? What is the penalty exactly?
I have to look at that. I'm not exactly sure. I know that there's a stipulation is if you have 7 players, it's 6 field players and one of them is a goalkeeper. You can never have 2 goalkeeper caps in the field of play at the same time. Whether that's clearly laid out somewhere as having a penalty, I don't believe it's clearly written in the rule book. That might be a case book type deal. I'd have to look into that, but that is a good question.
We might need something like that, especially now that it's the player that is ineligible or excluded rather, and not the position.
Yeah, right, exactly. Perfect. Okay, and we can make a note of that just so we can double check, and if there isn't, that's something that we can look into, right, in the future. So perfect. So I think we're good here. Oh, and one other point that I wanted to make about tactical foul. Let me go back to that previous slide. So one example where we say, but not limited to, another example that we had it at JO's. I think it was 2 years back now at JO's, where a player committed a foul outside of 6 meters. And I believe there was like only about a second left. And while the player came up to shoot a direct shot, the player clearly, purposely just interfered and tackled the player. The ball was knocked out of the hand or what have you, and the buzzer sounded, game is over. That was a tactical foul, and the referee correctly whistled a 5-meter penalty. So That would be one example that it wouldn't have to necessarily be knocking the ball away or throwing it away. It could be a different type of tackle foul as well. So let's go on to.
Player put the ball in play by taking it underwater.
So this is the fun one. This is the one where, for us in USA Water Polo, we've gotten the most questions regarding, and it seems like people needed some time to get the hang of calling this correctly. But so new rule is that if a player is fouled from behind within the 6-meter area in a probable goal situation, it is a penalty foul, regardless if they're holding the ball or not. So you have to be inside the 6-meter area, inside the probable goal area. It must be a probable goal situation. So you have front water, you're swimming or facing towards the cage, and you are fouled from behind or impeded. That does not allow you to complete the play, which then would be a penalty foul. It is a penalty foul regardless if you're holding the ball or not. So this is the only time in the game where holding the ball could be a foul. The only other time would be a player safety issue, right? So we don't as referees in the game, we don't care if you're holding the ball, if there's grabbing of the head or something where we have to deal with player safety issue. But this is the only time during the normal course of the game that if you're holding the ball could still be a foul. So continuing a little bit, so breaking down this new rule a little bit further. So the only way to defend in this position from behind is for the player to touch only the ball or the hand of the player, the attacking player. So what is, people ask, so what is the hand? So the hand is the wrist and above. So if you hit the forearm, you hit the bicep, and they cannot continue to play because of that foul, it is a penalty foul. So, and that is important because this rule does not take precedent over the advantage rule. It does not make the penalty foul an automatic call. So when this rule first came out for USA Water Polo, we would see things like 15 penalties in a game. We would see 20 penalties in a game. And so what we gathered from that, it was becoming an automatic. You touch a player, and before they could even finish the play, penalty fouls were called. And that is not the intent of the rule. So the referee must allow the player to continue to play. If they absorb the contact and they're still able to continue, the referee must allow that. It is only when now this contact, because of this contact, which should be a foul, not every contact is a foul, right? So because of this foul, I cannot continue this action. Now I reward the penalty. And also one little thing about, because a lot of people question now, does this become an and one per se, right? So if I absorb contact and I shoot and I miss, do I go back? Does the referee go back and call the penalty? And the answer is no. If you absorb the contact and you break away, you shoot and you miss, the goalie blocks you, you shoot it high, what have you, the referee doesn't go back 2-3 seconds before that and say, wait a minute, you got fouled 2-3 seconds ago, I'm going to now give you the penalty. That is not the case. But the one time where you do have it where the referee does call it is if the foul directly impacted the shot. So let's say as I'm working to go get the shot off, you hit my forearm, which requires me, as I'm shooting it, now the ball sails high because you hit my forearm. So that had a direct effect on my shot. In that case, yes, you do get a penalty. In the previous, where you absorb contact 2 seconds ago and you were able to break through and shoot and score, or shoot and miss, that's on you. But if the foul does have a direct effect, it is a penalty foul. So hopefully that made sense. Let's go ahead. This is a good opportunity to show these videos if there's no questions, or we can show the videos and take questions.
Levon, I have one.
Okay. Please.
What if a player clearly fishes for the foul, an attacking player who blatantly stops swimming to draw a defender on their back?
Well, that would be a form of simulation. So that would not be considered a play where the player is not able to continue the action. In this particular instance, the player is choosing not to complete the action, and that would be a form of a simulation. Good question. Let me go ahead. Let's go to the videos once again. So correct penalty 1 is the next video here. One more time. This is the clearest video that we have that we use to show this new rule. So player from behind, it's a probable goal situation, comes up to shoot, arm, shoulder gets pulled back. He's not able to complete the action. The ball lands in front of him and the goalie's stealing it. And the referee correctly times the penalty and gives the penalty when they were convinced that they are no longer able to complete the action. So very good video to display that. Let's move on to incorrect penalty 1. One more time. So in this video, this is an incorrect penalty because it was not a probable goal situation. So what is the definition of probable goal? So first things first, the two easiest ones are you are within the 6-meter area and you're either facing the cage or swimming towards the cage. Other considerations that would not make it a probable goal is if there are multiple defenders, either in front of you, on the side of you, who are close enough to make a play on the ball, that would not be considered a probable goal situation. Or if you're coming at the cage at such a poor angle that it would not be considered a probable goal situation. So let's say if you're coming parallel to this sideline here and you're hugging it and the goalkeeper is just both hands up in your face, it's going to be very tough for you to sell a probable goal situation in that case. So because of those parameters of probable goal, in this case, you have another defender in between the goalkeeper, the goal, and the player. In this case, you don't have a probable goal situation, which means that the player from behind is allowed to hit the arm and steal the ball from you without it being a foul, just like any other time in the game. So that is that's the confusion that is happening here with the players. So moving on to the next, correct penalty 2. Once again, hits the ball out of the hand. The ball goes sideways. And a penalty foul was called. Correct penalty 1. Correct no penalty 1. One more time. So the player was able to absorb the contact and finish the play, which is what the game wants, right? This is the highest level of advantage in the game, is for a player to shoot and score a natural goal right in front of the cage, right? So we got the result that the game wants to see. So, and just again to kind of talk about contact, and I do have a feeling that many people confuse contact with fouling. So it does seem that many referees, coaches, players, you name it, they equate contact automatically with it's a foul. Not every contact is a foul, right? So, it's important to know that if there's contact, doesn't necessarily mean it's a foul. And if we as referees can be patient and let the player continue and get this natural goal, that is, again, the result that we all, I think, want for the game. So moving on to incorrect penalty 2. One more time. So this was incorrectly called a penalty. If you notice, the ball comes in, the center here was not turned and facing the cage. They were kind of facing in this general area where the ball is on the goal line. So not a probable goal situation. The more ideal call would have been an exclusion for this player, for the center defender coming over the top to steal that ball. Exclusion would have been more appropriate in this case. Correcto, penalty 2. One more time. So again, not a probable goal situation. The player hadn't turned to fully face the cage. You had also another player coming from the side to make a play on the ball. So not a probable goal situation. Please ignore the caption on the bottom. This was a caption for international play. We do not have such a requirement to say that just because they're outside of the post does not make it a probable goal situation. There is no, that is not a parameter for NC2A, high school, what have you here. So just, it's not a probable situation. They're not facing the cage. They hadn't fully turned to get inside water, plus a second defender nearby to make that play as well. Penalty too early. Even though we can't hear the whistle just came there. I suspect this was something very similar to what we saw being called many times in USA water polo when we first rolled out with this new rule. As you can see, plenty of space, plenty of opportunity. Yes, there's a bit of contact, but again, contact doesn't necessarily mean a foul. They could continue the action, no problem. The referee chose to call it rather quickly, which is not in the spirit of the rule. Player hits the brakes. Okay, they hit the brakes, but they have plenty of room to continue, and we would like probably seen here them to progress and to get that natural goal. One more time, just in case. Yeah, very generous penalty call there for the player hitting the brakes. Correct penalty 3. Here's an example of a player where the foul had a direct effect on the shot. So in this particular case, you do get a penalty. One more time. Oh, no. Foul from behind. She's impeding from behind and hits the arm. Correct penalty in that situation. Correct no penalty 3. Took a lot of contact, but the ball was in hand and they were progressing. Let's watch it again. In this case, you would not issue a penalty. So the referee allowed the contact to be absorbed. These are big boys, obviously, right? So they were able to absorb that contact, and they got the shot off of a backhand. It would have been, had it been maybe a couple inches lower, it would have been a very nice shot, most likely. So in this case, it would not be a penalty foul. Now, could there be a case where you have high school athletes who are not, of course, not as strong as these professional athletes, where they can't absorb nearly as much contact, and that contact directly affects their shot? You can see that they're not able to get that shot off, or they do, the ball lands right in front of their face on the water. That contact, that foul definitely has an effect on that shot. Then yes, right there, you could issue a penalty. You couldn't go back 2, 3, 4 seconds before that and say, well, wait a minute, you got a foul back then, now I'm going to give you the penalty for that contact. That wouldn't be allowed, but the other case would be. Penalty too early too. Oof, nightmare situation for the referee. Players coming up to shoot, would have been a quite easy goal, and then a whistle comes with the ball in hand. Let's watch one more time. Anytime that a referee sees a ball in hand and the player is still moving, that should be a good indication to the referee that the player is still able to continue the action. If the ball gets knocked out of the hand, or if they try to get a shot and the ball's dropped in front of their face and they can't continue, once you see that release, then you can probably more accurately call that, okay, this player cannot continue action. But if you see the ball in hand, the referee should be patient to see if they continue to play and get that natural goal. We're talking about tactical fouls. Here's an example of a tactical foul. We're switching gears here a little bit, but this is the one that we were talking about earlier where the ball's thrown. And that was the game. The game is over. It was a tactical foul. Now this would be a penalty. If you notice, the coaches is basically saying throw it away and then claps after it's over. So it was done. It was done exactly how they wanted to, and they ended up winning the game. So now this would be a penalty. And game over. So, okay, let's stop this share here. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. Christine, how are we with any questions?
I think we're okay. We have one that says, if the ball is in hand and ready to take a shot, why can't the defensive player knock the ball out of the offensive player's hands? But that's just a result of the new rules. Is that correct, Levon? The new rules states that probable goal is probable goal, whether the player is holding the ball or not.
Right. So, but if they do hit the hand, that is okay. If they hit the hand or the ball, that is okay. So did I miss the question? So if the only way you can defend is to properly defend is only to hit the ball with the hand. If you hit the forearm, hit the bicep, any other part of the arm, it would not be considered properly playing defense.
Okay. So yeah. Oh, so, well, okay. I'll read this one more time just to make sure we answer. If ball is in hand and ready to take a shot, why can't the defensive player knock the ball out of the offensive player's hand?
Well, and the answer is they can.
Okay.
As long as that's the only thing they're doing. They're not leaning on them. They're not sinking them and then hitting it. They can only touch the ball or the hand.
Only playing. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Let me go ahead and share the PowerPoint once again. And lastly, the new points of emphasis for this year, it's what we've already gone through on the rules changes, but here are the points of emphasis. So one of the points of emphasis is to correctly put the ball in play. Again, it has to be done within a reasonable amount of time at the discretion of the referee. It has to be done clearly so that everyone knows the ball's in play and the defender knows when to repress or to play defense again on the player. So that's one of the new methods of scoring. Is another one outside of 6 meters, and the corner throw that are the additions of putting the ball in play and then shooting and scoring. Player advantage inside 6 meters. We talked about that. This was done to the rationale behind this rule was to make it just a little bit more fan-friendly game that made sense, right? Because one of the things people, let's say somebody's new to the sport, they come onto the pool deck, they'll see a player who is just swimming without the ball going towards the cage. They're technically driving. There's an exclusion. Next thing you know, that same player who's now in front of the cage holding the ball gets almost just murdered, tackled, and they don't get a call, and the referee shows they're holding the ball in their hand. So a player or a spectator is thinking to themselves like, wait a minute, there was barely anything happening when they were swimming next to each other, and that was a foul. But then the player was holding the ball and facing the cage and about to score, and that's nothing. So in this case, it just made more sense, right? And I think it made more sense when it comes to comparing us with soccer as well, and being in the box and you get contact. So it was just done for the betterment of the game, flow of the game, to make it a little bit more understanding. So. Talked about leaving the field of play, to points of emphasis. Again, we want to encourage players to go through the reentry area for for lifetime substitutions. But again, the penalty for not doing that is removed as long as they come back in from the reentry area or the substitute comes back in from the reentry area. Goalkeeper privileges, we talked about that, moving past the half court to play offense, also take part in a shootout, and they can also take a penalty shot. Goalkeeper can be substituted for a backup goalkeeper. And that's it from me. Thank you, everyone. I'll turn it back over to Sandy and Christine if there's no other questions.
I don't see any other questions, Levon. On behalf of the National Federation, I'd like to thank you for taking all of this time and collecting those videos. I know Christine and I were chatting throughout the presentation. We were unable to copy and paste the link as we scroll down through the chat. So we'll make sure to include that in the email that we send to you with the typed chat and the typed questions. And then also we will post the MP4 on the NFHS YouTube channel. That will all come in one email group. Christine, I noticed there's a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Upon taking a penalty shot, do you allow the player taking the shot to move forward while he or she is taking the shot where that 5 meter just became a 4 meter?
No, that would be illegal. So a 5 meter penalty shot must be taken on the 5 meter line. So yes, there will be some follow through where the player comes up to shoot and they will slightly go into the 5 meter area on that follow through. That is not the issue. The issue would be if a player actually physically comes forward before they actually come up, and they would then take a shot from 4.5, 4 meters, what have you. That is the violation. So that would be a turnover. Again, and another part of what we get from that same line of questioning would be is can a player start on the 6 meter line, and then when we blow the whistle, they end up on the 5 meter line coming forward? Unfortunately, no. The rule states that it must be taken on the 5 meter line.
And with that, I think we're done for the evening. Again, thanks to Christine. She was madly typing answers to, wait for it, 37 questions. So thank you, Christine. That was awesome. And thank you, Levon, and thanks, Angela. And thanks everybody for participating. Look for something from us within the next 48 hours or so. And if you have any questions, direct them to your rules interpreter or your state association person. And if they have questions about what the interpretation should be, they will reach us. And we have a direct line to Christine and Levon. so we'll get you the answer, but there's a protocol. We ask that you go through your state association first so that they're aware of what the answer is, quite frankly, if they have a question about it. So appreciate your time and attention.
We do owe them the answer to the second goalkeeper entering the field. So we will get that
yes,
figured out, and then hopefully include that with the link that we'll be sending you to this webinar.
Thanks, Christine.
No problem.
Thank you, everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
So you all have a good evening, and thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.